Yo, I've been doing my rounds on the internet and I'm starting to realize that some women really hate men, you know? And it made me think, why do they hate men so much? You'll go on TikTok, you'll go on YouTube, and you'll find hundreds and hundreds of videos from angry young women talking about how they hate men. All men are pieces of shit. All men are dirtbags. And it really had me thinking, why? Why do they feel this way? What is leading them to feel this way? What experiences? I don't want to take their own words from them, but who hurt you? Who hurt you? That's the question. Who hurt you? So why do women hate men? This is going to be a very general talk on the topic, purely anecdotal. But the first thing I'm going to say is one of the reasons why women hate men is because they suck at picking the right ones. You'll see some ordinary girl go after top tier men. And then when that guy betrays them, inevitably, they complain and say, oh, all men are dirtbags. All men are cheaters. All men are this. All men are that. When in reality, the real problem is that you went and picked somebody that was out of your league. That's the problem. People always want to live in this fantasy, especially women, where they envision themselves way above where they really are. And we've seen this time and time again on the internet. In all of the street interviews, rate yourself 1 through 10. They always say 10. They always think they're a 10. So then they go after people that are actually 10s and they wonder why they get used and abused. If you go after some guy who's a multi-million-dollar actor, he's going to have millions and millions of options. So when he inevitably cheats on you because you weren't up to that level, you were just an ordinary girl working at the McDonald's, putting the fries in the bag, that's on you because you were a poor choice of character. You lack discernment. And then after a few of these guys, these top tier, top ranked guys hurt them, they go out on a limb and say, all men are assholes. All men are bad. All men are toxic. You talk to these women and just by talking to them, you can tell that they've never dealt with an ordinary, normal guy. And I'm not saying I'm that ordinary, normal guy. I think that I'm also a little bit above the fray, but that they've only talked to guys that have supercars and expensive clothing and nice watches and dress sharp and are successful. They honestly don't even realize that ordinary men exist. The guy who works at the McDonald's, they're coworkers. Let's keep it clear. Let's keep it a buck. They're coworkers. They would never go out and date one of their coworkers. If you're a girl making sub $100,000, why would you go after a guy making $1 gazillion? It's like an inferiority complex that they have. They always go after guys that are superior to them. But you know what? Let me correct myself because I am slightly contradicting myself unintentionally. It's not an inferiority complex. It's that they're so delusional that they put themselves on the same level as the guy making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, the guy who's super duper successful. Like, honey, you work at McDonald's. You're putting the fries in the bag. Why do you think that this guy who owns 7 Lamborghinis and 3 businesses owes you something? You're not on the same level. Go date the guy who's putting in the fries. Go date the guy who's putting the fries in the bag next to you in the McDonald's. But they refuse to do that. These are the same girls that wait their entire lives, right? They wait their entire lives. They reach the age of 30 and they wonder why they're still single. Oh, I can't find the right guy. Oh, there's no guys for me. Oh, all men are assholes. But you go check their DMs, they have hundreds and hundreds of messages from guys. The only problem is that those are the guys they don't want. They want guys that are way out of their league. So that's the first problem. They pick men that have too many options and too much power and that are way out of their league. They inevitably get hurt, and then they think that all men fall into that same category, when in reality, they're going for the top tier 1% of guys, and they're not in the 1% of women. Problem number 2 is that they have daddy issues. These women come from a long line of women who failed the first point I made, picking the wrong men. So they end up growing up in fatherless families where they never had a male role model. They don't know what characteristics to look for in a man because they grew up without a dad, or they grew up with a dad who was a piece of shit. So then they think that all men are the same. All men are like my dad. They're all going to run off. They're all going to cheat. They're all going to scam. They're all going to be dirtbags. When in reality, the problem is that your mom was a poor judge of character, and she put you in a situation that was unfortunate for you because your dad was a piece of shit. You know? But since they have no other perspective and they've only lived under those conditions, they don't have enough insight to realize that it's not all men. It's the men that they choose. Again, going back to the first point, you know, they've been conditioned to choose these men because they grew up around these men. Their dad was a piece of shit. Their brother was a piece of shit. Their brother was a piece of shit because their dad was a piece of shit and he's emulating his dad. Their dad is a piece of shit because their mom lacked the judgment to pick a guy who wasn't a piece of shit to begin with. It's a vicious cycle, and it's not going to end because she's going to pick a piece of shit, have kids. The kids are going to emulate that, and the cycle continues. The cycle continues. And then they want to prance around and make videos on the internet to contaminate the dating pool, talking about all men are toxic, when in reality, no, you are toxic. Unfortunately, I have to throw it back on you. I don't want to blame the victim, but once you've grown up with that mindset, once you've been contaminated with that mind virus, you're up shit's creek. There's no turning around for you. It's very hard to deprogram a human being who's been in those conditions since birth. So unfortunately, you're damaged fruit. You're damaged fruit because what will happen is that woman who's damaged will get picked by a guy who also lacks the ability to have foresight into the personality of the person they're picking. And then she'll screw him over, and then he'll think that all women are toxic and all women are pieces of shit. Because don't get me wrong, I'm making this video about why women hate men, but there's a whole bunch of men who also hate women. And it's literally the same thing. They're just the opposite side of the same coin. They're the opposite side of the same coin, unfortunately. And this is why society, little by little, begins to break down because we've lost sight of what a nuclear family looks like. We've lost sight of what relationships, a healthy relationship should look like. You know, very few people have both parents. Very few people grow up in a family that's healthy. So since they didn't grow up in a healthy family, they just spread the mind virus to their offspring, unfortunately. Then we get to the third point, and this is my final point. There are some females that do have the ability to choose the right man and did grow up in a decent family, but they still think that they're secondhand citizens, even though they're not. And they complain about this. Oh, the patriarchy. Oh, they're holding me down. Oh, I don't have as many options. I don't have, like, all of that. Maybe it was valid in the 1950s, the 1960s, but in the big 2025, you can do whatever you want. Yo, heck, you can change genders if you want. There's nothing holding you back. But these women will still complain about being at a disadvantage, that men rule the world, that men own everything, that men control everything, that men are holding them back, while simultaneously taking advantage of female privilege, because females do have privilege. You know, I've said it many times in other videos. Females have the privilege to be infantilized and escape accountability and get special treatment. And these women will complain about the patriarchy and how they don't have opportunities and they're not being treated as equals. But at the same time, they'll turn around and try to take advantage of the patriarchy, take advantage of the benefits of being infantilized by men, take advantage of their lack of accountability, make it make sense. Make it make sense. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. The truth is anybody who's out here hating the opposite gender, it always is going to come back to you. What happened in your life to have you think this way? What ruined your perspective? Why are you so blinded by hate that you think that every single individual of the opposite gender, the opposite sex, is out to get you? They're all toxic. They're all bad. I just wanted to get this off my chest. I hope that it makes you think. I hope it makes you re-evaluate your perspective on life, because going through life that way is a very sad thing. You know, you see these women, they're angry. They're angry at the world. They think that somebody's holding them back. They think that they're victims of some sort of systemic oppression, when in reality, the only one oppressing them is themselves. And vice versa. The men who think that all women are gold diggers, the men who think that all women are toxic, The men that think that women only care about material things, money, yada, yada, yada. Those guys, same predicament, same predicament. It's sad. It's sad. And we need to start, self-reflecting and really realizing where these problems stem from so we can nip them in the bud. Anyways, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll catch you on the next one. Out.